This is not clickbait. I am not exaggerating. This game is one of the weirdest fucking things I've ever played. Necessary disclaimer so I don't get this video taken down. I censored this video the best I could. There's no actual graphic YouTube unfriendly content in this video. Please do not take it down, YouTube team. I worked very hard on it. Hello and welcome back to the Positivity Corner. And I know what you're thinking, and I know you are probably going to have a lot of questions about the things I'm about to show you. So if you're already thinking about leaving and clicking off this weird crud, just wait a minute, because the things I'm about to show you can be a very fun conversation piece when talking with friends about the weirdest stuff you've seen online. And this one might just take the cake. Anyway, I have found probably one of the strangest games to ever exist. Our most precious and dearest Gick discovered this game and practically forced me to do a review on it by buying it for me and not telling me what it was and then asking me to play through it. Which, if you don't know who Gick is, he is one of my best friends and our lovely moderator in our Discord server, which you can join in the description below. It's free and we have fun in there. I'm sure you've seen the thumbnail and our YouTube friendly 30 seconds are up, so... This motherfucker bought me a game called Sex with Hitler. He bought me a porn game. Yeah, you heard me right. This ain't no joke. I'm not messing with you. Somebody actually created this game. Like, somebody put their time and effort and made this an efforted project to create this game. I know. You're probably thinking, what the fuck are you doing in this game? Well, I suffered through it so you don't have to, and it's actually a lot better than you'd expect. I know. Hear me out. Sex with Hitler has 3 different segments that you'll be playing through after your friends stop bullying your life decisions and you actually go and play this garbage. The first segment is the main meat and potatoes of the game, the visual novel story that has hilariously bad spelling and surprisingly less horniness and better writing than you'd expect from a porn game. However, the writing is only slightly better than you'd expect. The second segment is the main gameplay you'll find, which has a top-down sort of view like Diablo, but plays as an isometric shooter. And again, this part of the game is a lot better than you'd expect from a porn game, but it's got some issues that I'll get into a little later. And the third part of the game is... Oh god, this is why it's a porn game. Now, obviously, I can't show most of this because I don't feel like getting my channel banned, but trust me, you're not missing much. It's just porn with surprisingly good animation. Now, this section is entirely unnecessary and has absolutely nothing to do with the story. And I'm serious about that, by the way. It's completely arbitrary and adds nothing to the game besides the title and an AO rating. Now, the game is broken up into 30 levels, and each level consists of a visual novel story segment, followed by a gameplay segment, but at the end of every third level, you'll get a random-ass sex scene with one of the girls from the story, and it has nothing to do with anything going on. In fact, it actually breaks the flow of the story since the writing of the game has no actual sexual implications with Hitler or any of the girls in it. It's just kind of thrown in there, like very out of left field. I personally think the game would be better had they omitted this part of the game entirely. But then it wouldn't be called Sex with Hitler, so... And before I go on, I'd like to add that some of these scenes are really fucking weird. Like, there's this scene where Hitler shoves a literal missile into this lady's, womanly areas. There are plenty more of these scenes, and knowing the internet, that means I probably have to go over the really weird ones. Which we will, but first, I think in all this weirdness and extremely horny nature of the game, it's easy to forget to go over the most important aspect of it. What the heck is this freaking game about? Well, take my hand and enjoy this magic carpet ride through this strange abomination. Mind the stains on the carpet. You're not gonna want to shine a black light. So, I'm gonna take you through the story here. If it matters to you, here's a spoiler warning, I guess. I don't think you're gonna want to join me in having porn on your Steam For You page every 5 games. Trust me, you get a lot of it if you play a game like this. So I recommend just watching this video instead. You're not exactly missing a game of the year over here. Anyway, Hitler is the player insert, so naturally we start off with him giving a monologue to a corpse. We're greeted to Berlin in April 1945, which if you don't know world history is the month that Russia stormed the fuck out of it and when Hitler put a loaded pistol into his mouth. However, in this version of events, Hitler and Eva Braun, Hitler's mistress, managed to escape the bunker, leaving Hitler roaming the streets after Eva told him to suck a fat dick. Speaking of dicks, the swastika in this universe is replaced with a giant black one. Very interesting choice. But then again, what else am I supposed to expect from developers that made a game called Sex with fucking Hitler? Anyway, Berlin is on fire and surrounded, and our story starts with Hitler trying to talk some philosophical shit about love to a corpse, which I gotta ask, why? Why do this in a porn game? So he's talking some crap to the corpse, and then suddenly reminisces about his past as a soldier, and this is to give you an introductory mission as to how the gameplay works. We'll dive into the gameplay later, but almost all of the story segments are cut short by some flashback gameplay part, which really disrupts the flow of the game, but you gotta get your gameplay in somehow, and this is how they do it. Hitler finishes flashbacking, and then we find an anime hentai waifu bitch just kinda randomly hovering next to Hitler with a submachine gun and very overly animated tits. He doesn't seem to notice her at first, but it's whatever, we'll roll with it. This actually carries over with any character that will be in any given scene. It's immersion breaking, but we gotta remember that this is a fucking porn game! Hitler then states his main goal, which is to flee from Germany. Understandable, since everyone there is trying to murder him with a pitchfork. And then we meet this waifu bitch, who goes by Galina, and she mistakes Hitler for Charlie Chaplin. She's quickly corrected, and this is normally something Hitler would kill somebody for, but he's too cool for that now, because I'm guessing that killing all the Jews must have taken all his Chaos Emerald energy. We then find out that she's a Russian lady whose husband died fighting for the Nazis, and because of that, she has no real home. So her solution is to look for an empty house in Berlin where the owners conveniently died and their house isn't rubble on the ground. That must be easy enough for the genius waifu lady. We then even get references to the real world events where Hitler does kill himself. But this Hitler is like, nah dog, I wouldn't do that. But one thing we understand about Galina from here on out is that she isn't afraid of Hitler. She's very direct, upfront, and bold with him. And speaking that she's Russian, we get the feeling that she might not like him very much, especially considering that the real-life Hitler did many atrocities to the Russian people. But that will not stop Galina from getting that Fuhrer dick all up in her pussy. She fucks him right after this scene. She gets that Third Reich nut all over her face after literally complaining that he marched her husband into fucking death. This is the best written game of all time. For the record, them having sex isn't even mentioned in the story. None of the sex scenes are mentioned in the story. As far as the story's concerned, they never happened. It is utterly just an attempt to get the player's cock in their hand. Can you imagine that? Jacking off to Hitler hentai? Oh my god. Some of you guys are gonna do that after watching this video. What the fuck am I doing with my life? I'm reviewing a porn game! In the next scene, Hitler brings up the Battle of Stalingrad and claims that he kicked the Russians' asses. Spoiler alert, he did not. Galina correctly points out the holes in his story and tells him he's full of it while emasculating the poop out of him. Hitler then basically asks how she could know all this stuff, and then she claims she's from the future. Hitler believes it, and Galina not so subtly calls him a moron. They argue and bicker back and forth about what actually happened at Stalingrad until Hitler threatens to rape her. Nice going, douchebag. And somehow, in the same conversation, they officially team up to help each other. Now that's forgiveness if I've ever seen it. If Hitler helps her find a non-torched house in Berlin, Galina will tell Hitler the stealthy secrets of how to escape the city unharmed. The pair start looking for a house when we realize more and more that Galina actually hates Hitler's guts. What a surprise. And she also describes her hope for Berlin to make a recovery and start thriving again. During this conversation, Hitler spots a house that he knows is vacant, holding his end of the deal. Galina then starts to explain how to escape the city, when out of nowhere, we see that Galina gets shot and killed mid-sentence. God damn. And I actually liked her. She was calling him out as a douchebag. We then get another gameplay segment, foot jobs by Galina, who is now dead, followed by meeting Galina's murderer, another hentai bitch. This is Louise, or as Hitler likes to say, Louisa. Louisa is a high-ranking official in the Black Dick Nazi army, and because of this, Hitler already knows who she is. Because of that, he can very appropriately call her an idiot and a stupid bitch. It's pretty clear by now that Hitler is livid. Not helped by the fact that Louisa was stalking them this whole time and only now decides to off Galina. Maybe she is a stupid bitch. Louisa claims she did it only to defend Hitler and vows to help him with whatever plans he may have. However, Louisa also claims the war isn't over and insists they go back and fight the Soviets. Hitler's response to this is, "F that, you crazy bitch. You wanna die? Die alone. I'm getting the f out of you." Louisa then agrees to go with Hitler, and they start looking for a way out of the city. A conversation about Moscow then ensues about their almost perfect plans to siege the capital. This is yet another reference to real-world history, where the Nazis tried to storm the Russians in the wintertime, and because of the weather, it did not work so well for them. But according to these two, it was almost perfect. which is their way of further flaunting Hitler's wild sense of delusion. Louisa also mentions that she has PTSD from all the explosions and scenes of war, but Hitler basically doesn't give a shit and proceeds to talk trash about Japan. Right after this, we're greeted to Louisa's first naughty waifu bitch scene. Yay! Following that, Louisa suggests they flee on a bridge, which Hitler is not a fan of. And somehow they start talking about how everyone's saying that Hitler killed himself. In response, Hitler says it was one of his many stunt doubles that was killed in his place. What a stand-up guy. One thing I'd like to mention that I've been mostly glossing over is the very frequent breaks the story will take so that Hitler can give his gameplay flashback. But at this point in the story, even Louisa starts to question Hitler's memory. His delusion is so great that it's even becoming apparent to her. But Hitler then gets very angry, and as the yes man, or yes woman, Louisa is, she drops it. They also talk some crap about aliens existing, but look, this game's weird. Anyway, Louisa runs into some Romanian soldiers, and the two decide to tail them as they're probably going out of the city, and they can also act as human shields. As they're going, there's some character development for Louisa, followed by some buffoon talk about sending some forbidden research to the moon, along with Hitler's planned trip to outer space before the French seized his secret launch station, followed by a mass genocide of everyone that knew it existed. Also, did I mention this game is weird? Regardless, some crap happens where the Romanians decide to stop leaving the city and instead target some actress lady that Louisa knows, so Hitler and Louisa gotta go in guns blazing and try to kill them all. But strangely enough, after a gameplay segment where Hitler kills a bunch of people, which I think is actually probably unrelated, we discover that they were all already dead. How did this happen? In the next scene, followed by some more Louisa porn, we surprisingly see Galina again on screen, only to discover that she's there as a figment of Hitler's imagination, whose sole purpose is to fuck with him. And what messes with Hitler even more is that Louisa basically rubs in her kill with Galina that only serves to anger Hitler and make Louisa cry. And this only highlights further that Hitler is a piece of shit, as he basically goes, who cares? Such is war. Further cementing her position as the best character, Galina continues to insult Hitler beyond the grave, as well as point out the holes in his plan, along with calling them both fucking morons. And to be fair, they are. After that, we get one of the funniest bits in the game, where Hitler goes on a whole, "Why don't you like me, Galina?" tirade, and Galina says that Hitler's a con man looking ass populist that just gets people to blindly follow him. And if the balls on this woman weren't enough, Hitler gives an entire speech about how the people of the world needed him to solve their problems, like getting railed by a howitzer-sized schlong from a genocidal maniac. And in response to this speech, Galina dunks on Hitler hard enough to make Michael Jordan jealous by basically saying, "Fuck your speech, you're still a small man, and I fucked your dad last night." I made up that last part about Galina fucking Hitler's dad, but the emasculating effect really hits home regardless. I'd also like to add that Galina also dunks on Mussolini and horny Americans, which is very ironically, albeit hilariously, mocking the target audience of this game. Have I mentioned that Galina is the best character in this game? In this whole conversation though, Galina mentions that there's an underground tunnel network that leads out of the city, and they should probably start heading there. This also reaffirms that Hitler is bonkers cuckoo, as Galina is clearly an extension of Hitler's own thoughts at this point, which highlights that Galina's opinions are actually Hitler's insecurities of himself. She also confirms that Hitler actually did go into that house and murder a bunch of people, but hey, he's Hitler. What did you expect? They start heading towards the underground tunnel network when imaginary Galina reminds Hitler that he actually doesn't know where the heck he's going. So that plan goes bust, and they now have to think of a new one. Galina also calls Hitler a piece of garbage yet again by calling out the concentration camps, and in response, Hitler goes, "Yup, you got me. I'm pretty fucking evil." Bro, this is peak writing. Hitler's backup plan is to send Louisa by herself into the fucking sewers to maybe find an escape to the city. And if that doesn't work, he'll send her to a Soviet-infested cathedral to look for yet another way out. Once again, man, Hitler is such a great guy. Oh lord, please don't take that out of context. I doomed myself. The pair then separate. We get a tit job scene by some random Japanese bitch, and then Hitler talks to himself, I mean Galina, about Mein Kampf and how he touches himself to it for a solid 10 minutes. Mein Kampf is Hitler's autobiography, by the way, I would know that because I brought it to an airport and then asked people about it. True story, by the way. And no, I'm not a neo-Nazi. Anyway, they talk about Hitler going to hell and some other BS, and then we get yet another anime waifu on screen again. We're finally at the cathedral where we're supposed to meet up with Louisa, or... To be honest, this writing is really a jumbled mess, but the cathedral is swarmed with enemies, and Galina also slaps Hitler and calls him a lying whore. I liked that part. I figured I'd add it. The American soldier on screen is revealed to be a woman named Tracy, although she never identifies herself as such, and the Americans proceed to surround and then beat the snot out of our boy Adolf. She then mocks how Hitler was moving in his sleep as if he were shooting a gun, sloppily referring to the level that we just played in between scenes, and then continues to mock him and assert her American dominance as she lights a cigarette. Hitler then goes all pussy mode and goes, "Oh, but don't smoke in here, it's bad for you. Also, I don't like the smoke." To which Tracy replies, "Boy, shut your lame ass up, you're literally Hitler!" They then talk about some useless garbage until we get another level and a sex scene, and yes, this one is the gosh dang missile. And then we're greeted to quite a lot of characters on screen. Tracy talks about some useless crap while threatening Hitler again. Hitler gives his speech, and then we're welcomed to our second character, who is not the biggest fan of the Fuhrer. Who would have guessed that the American doesn't like fucking Hitler? Louisa then kicks down the door to the cathedral, chucks a shotgun at Hitler, and somehow the two of them blast the crud out of an entire American platoon. Right before Louisa pops Tracy, she asks Tracy for any last words. And then Tracy proceeds to say the most badass thing and funny thing that she could have said at that moment. "Eat shit, Nazi whore." Now, this would have been an excellent way to go out, but unfortunately, Louisa has a last-second change of heart and suggests that it actually might be a better idea to take Tracy hostage. This way they actually have a viable escape plan. Galina mocks their naivety once again, and this time Louisa has had it, and reveals that she could see and hear Galina the entire time by shooting her through the eyeball, letting her brains and insides paint the ground as if to redecorate. This bitch killed the badass Russian lady twice? What the fuck? Meanwhile, Tracy looks at the two like they're out of their rockers, which they are. Tracy continues to insult the pair right before she jumps Louisa and takes her gun. There's a long, drawn-out, "I'm gonna kill you" segment before US reinforcements show up, leaving the Fuhrer no choice but to fight. Except that doesn't work out too well because they conveniently run out of bullets. As we could see, plot progression is very clearly organic. And hold on, before we continue this all-out intense shootout between Tracy and the Nazis, we have to stop everything. Take a moment to let Tracy get down on her knees and give Hitler the sucky suck mid-fight. Oh god damn it, who the fuck wrote and pasted this game? I want their names! Since our heroes, if that's what you want to call them, have no means to fight, they run. And apparently, they run like goddamn lightning because they managed to get not shot by like 30 plus soldiers completely unloading on them. It's okay, guys. The plot armor is protecting them harder than Hitler's... Actually, you know what? We're not gonna go there. Tracy then corners Hitler. They talk about commies or whatever bullcrap, and then Tracy finally reveals herself to be, well, Tracy. Shocker. But apparently, Hitler didn't get cornered well enough because he transformed into Lightning McQueen and makes his totally believable escape. Come on, guys, you aren't even trying anymore. I mean, it was never believable to begin with, but come on, this is a new low. I suppose, though, that dignity isn't the highest priority when making a pornography game about f***ing Hitler. Tracy corners Hitler yet again, and this time the Japanese hentai bitch from like 4 sex scenes ago is on screen, and the two engage in a knife fight after Miss Righteousness tries to shank the hell out of our boy. Hitler socks her in the face. Tracy then gets the upper hand, and right before she ends our moronic protagonist, she gets fucking sliced in half by a random Japanese lady screaming, "Banzai!" This Japanese lady, whose name is apparently Amy, claims to be sent by Hirohito, the ruler of Japan at the time, on a rescue mission to extract Hitler safely from Berlin. She basically says, "Hey doofus, there's a plane with your name on it, and we gotta get our asses on board before we all get permanently stuck off board." The two dip out of there. We watch Hitler stick a dildo pistol up Tracy's now deceased womanly areas, and then we're greeted to the game plan discussion between Amy and Hitler. Hitler basically asks, "Yo, what the fuck is going on, bitch? To which Amy responds that not only has she also been stalking Hitler throughout the whole game, but they're also going to be flying to Tokyo to meet Emperor Hirohito after they escape. And of course, with or without Hitler's consent. They both agree that they have to first find Louisa to get her out of the city as well, and it doesn't take them long to locate her, and for Amy to somehow kill everybody that's tailing her single-handedly with ease, despite only being equipped with a sword? But hey, we'll roll with it. Hitler and Amy talk back and forth about some nonsense before Amy too insults Hitler and calls him weak. It seems that, very understandably, nobody can stand this scumbag. Not even the people risking their lives to save him. Eventually, they start shooting their way towards the airplane. And it became apparent to me here that at some point, the gameplay flashbacks became actual gameplay relevant to the story. The game just does a really bad job of conveying this to the player, especially since the actual mission objectives have absolutely nothing to do with the main story's objectives. The three of them make their way to the runway, they banter about some garbage, and then more reinforcements show up that they must stave off. At this point in the game, since we're almost at the end, the levels become very frequent and really ramp up in difficulty, which you could argue is actually good game design. But you'll see why it isn't when we talk about the gameplay in a second. After a level, we're greeted to a lovely scene where we watch Louisa watch Hitler touch himself. Okay, I've gotta be honest, this is probably one of the most cursed things I have ever seen. After killing some guys, Hitler talks about murdering every single person that knows he's alive. What a shocker that this guy's into genocide. And then we get bombarded by even more Soviets. They start shooting at the plane, and since there's too many of them, to ensure that Amy and the Fuhrer can escape Berlin safely, Louisa offers to sacrifice herself in order to buy the other two some time to escape. Hitler just kind of goes, "Okay, bye Louisa," but then starts to cry? After having treated Louisa like trash for the entire game, he now decides that he cares about her? While also leaving her to die? You guys had plot armor for the whole freaking game and were able to dodge thousands of bullets. And you decide now that it's too late for Louisa? Bro, what the... what? This makes no freaking sense. But they board the plane. Louisa does not get on, and Hitler looks around Berlin all sad and vows to come back with a rock-hard vengeance and do it right next time. We then get a final level that's not really all that hard, the funniest sex scene in the game, which we will make fun of in a minute, and then the game just kinda ends very abruptly and with no credits or anything. Not like I imagine many people would want their name plastered all over a game like this, but still, I have very mixed opinions on this game. On one hand, it's terrible, has near atrocious writing, does not track well at all, is unreadable at times, and most importantly, sells itself on being Nazi Germany hentai Hitler porn. But on the other hand, it's funny as shit. I mean, at the very least, it's interesting. The game may be terrible, but unlike a game like Fallout 76, it's not so bad that it's boring. I was able to clock in several hours on this game in the making of this video, and considering that this game is a cash grab for a quick bust, I'll take that as a win. I was able to meme this game through the roof with my friends in the making of this video. And by being this interestingly bad, by trying to make something so unbelievably awful good, makes it kinda good in my opinion. And the best part is, we're not even done talking about it. I still gotta talk about the gameplay, but before we do that, I want to take a moment for the final scene. So, the final sex scene of the game is probably the most iconic pick from the game in the Steam community. And yes, this game has a Steam community. Now, the pick is really creepy, and I can't show you most of it because, you know, it's porn. But the funniest bit is something I can show, and that's this. Yeah, like I said, this game is fucking weird. Anyway, enough about that entertaining, albeit terrible story. Let's take a minute to talk about the gameplay for a sec. Gameplay-wise, this game is so close to being good. but it's not. Like I said earlier, it's an isometric shooter where you have to run past or gun down enemies to make it to the goal. The goal is almost always a blue ring that signifies the end of a level, and in a few cases, it's almost like a maze to get to it, with a lot of level and some exploring in between. Most of the time, however, it's a straightforward path of enemies that clearly indicates through level design where you need to go. There's a few different weapons that are assigned to you, depending on the level you're playing, with enough ammo that most of the time, you don't need to worry much about bullets. And I'll admit, I think the design of the gameplay is fun. The game actually gets very challenging since you have to shoot according to where the enemy is going. Enemies are accurate, you take quite a lot of damage, and oftentimes as you progress, you're swarmed with a lot of them. It forces you to sometimes think and strategize, to get behind cover and to choose when to peek out. The difficulty progression feels natural, as gameplay is easy to pick up and the game gives you plenty of time to get familiar with the AI and how to beat them. On paper, the gameplay of Sex with Hitler is great. It seems to be a shining aspect in an otherwise ridiculous and nonsensical game. However, it sucks. It's not executed well. The biggest problem that this game suffers from is that it's clunky. Very clunky. Enemies hide behind barriers that block your shots very inconsistently. Camera angles are sometimes awful. Backtracking is a bitch and a half. Replaying levels are a chore, especially when you lose near the end of one due to some cheese and have to replay the whole thing. There are visual bugs. I got soft blocked in place at one point. Shots sometimes don't register. And speaking of shots not registering, the STG-44 belongs in a category of its own. Oh my god, is using this thing awful. The STG-44 is the automatic rifle in this game, and it is heavily used, especially towards the end of the game. I'm not joking when I say that my grandma would be more accurate if I blindfolded her, spun her around 3 times, and asked her to shoot an apple off my head. This weapon makes the game unfun to play. You can literally be point blank, unload an entire magazine, and still miss every single shot. Now, on the flip side, it does add an additional challenge having to time your way through a level in order to be so close that you can smell their perfume. But when you die at the end of a level because, oops, you can't shoot straight, it makes you want to chuck your PC out the window. The rest of this game's shooting actually feels pretty good, but is unfortunately ruined by its inconsistency. Added to this, the gameplay segments all reuse the same assets, coding, etc., and because of this, it always feels very generic and disconnected from the story. In fact, I think that it's precisely because of this that the story is sometimes so hard to follow, as it always loops to the same 2 gameplay scenes despite what's happening in the story or what flashbacks they're trying to depict. Also, all of the music in this game is looped to death, so it's just painful to have to listen to it over and over and over, and it's really immersion breaking. Like I said, the gameplay has so much going for it, but the fact that it's a shitty Unity game, coupled with the other fact that the story/gameplay transitions are horribly paced, just squanders all potential. Anyway, that's the whole game. This game, by nature, is so incredibly ridiculous and over the top. But what if I told you that there was an aspect of it that I'm not mentioning that is even more ridiculous and over the top? That's right, we're talking Steam reviews, baby! Add multiplayer. Sex. My mom came into my room while I was playing this. She joined. I'm asking for forgiveness from God. I did not get to have sex with Hitler. I got to watch Hitler have sex with women. 10 out of 10 can play with one hand. Amazing experience. It's crucial for your child's development and possibly the primary reason for why I have no game and suicidal thoughts. Holy fucking shit, this game must have a Goaty edition. For real, for real. Why, yes. I like sex with Führer. Okay? Sex. This is just painful. I did not get to have sex with Hitler. I had to watch him have sex. I'm at a low point in my life. I hate my friends. I hate my friends. Again. Too much talking, not lot sex with Hitler.
Are you winning, son?
I learned how to play a shooter with only my left hand. My father set me up for adoption when he saw me playing this.
Is this canon to World War II?
Life-changing. Possibly the best gunplay I've ever seen. Tempted to leap out of my 8-story window. I watched Hitler jack off.
This game has corrupted me. I cannot stop thinking about Hitler. The sheer thought of being dominated by him makes me cream. All I do is play sex with Hitler. At home, at work. I sometimes don't even sleep just so I could admire his hot physique, the shape of his manhood, and his stash. Every moment without him is agonizing.
You won't last 30 seconds playing this game. Yo, speedrun the game in under an hour and refund it with plenty of time. Beat it in under 2 hours, so I was able to refund it. Very wholesome game. It's very family friendly too. The origin of Purple Guy. In 1976, William had twins. Story very poggers. Very Christian game for the family. Why does motherfucker have 2 balls? 0 out of 10. You have to watch Hitler have sex and Hitler has 2 testicles, not 1, which shows a complete lack of respect for historical accuracy. And last but certainly not least,
Vigor Hitler 2 balls.
By the way, in checking the Steam community page, I discovered that there's a setting to play with all the girls naked. I'm very glad I didn't know this was the thing while playing the game. It also explains the overly animated tits. Okay, I'm done talking about this game. It's been long enough. Unfortunately, this part of my script, the outro section, somehow didn't save to my computer, so I guess I'm winging this. One little tidbit, I learned that the Steam Points shop actually has a Sex with Hitler page. So to commemorate this video's release, I went and got the Galena icon. She was the true MVP of making this game at least a little bit more bearable. So for all of my Steam friends, you will see I have a pornography icon. You're welcome. I unfortunately figured out that this game has 2 sequels, not 1 but 2, Sex with Hitler 2 and Sex with Hitler 3D. So if you guys really like this, I can touch on those, but it's cursed. Sidebar, Sex with Hitler 2 is not out yet, and Sex with Hitler 3D is not by the same developer, so maybe we'll see in the future, I don't know. Anyway, if you sat through and watched this whole video, I really appreciate it. I put so much work into a stupid video about a porn game, so liking, subscribing, commenting, all of it means so much to me. You don't have to do anything, but just know I appreciate it if you do. Hopefully this is a fun conversation piece. You can talk with people about, yo, check that weird shit I found online. You know me, I'm about that weird shit. So you can tell your friends about it, or you could share the video. Helps me out a ton. I'd appreciate that greatly. Anyway, enough plugging. Thank you all for sticking around. I really, really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Just know I love you. You're a beautiful human being. You deserve love, happiness, and all great things, no matter who you are. Don't forget that. That's it for me, so do consider subscribing. And I will hopefully see you in the next video if I make something like this in the future, maybe? Who knows? I will catch you all later. Bye, everybody.